In examining anxiety disorders, the easiest thing to understand is that the number one issue here, or the number one problem of these disorders, is very high levels of anxiety. And people don't know exactly how to deal with it. And the thing is, when we talk about stress, we always talk about the fact that you have to figure out a way to get rid of stress or anxiety in your life in a good way. Because if you don't, it will come out somehow. It's going to find a way. And these are ways that some people deal with very high levels of anxiety. Now, first of all, we talk about the different disorders. The first one in this category, anxiety disorders is the category. We talk about generalized anxiety disorder. And kind of a nickname for this is free-floating anxiety. We talk about that because the anxiety is always there. It's ever present. It doesn't go away, and it has no particular cause. There's nothing you can link it to. So, for example, when we talked about some of the common features that exist in a lot of the disorders, we said high levels of anxiety without a particular cause. Well, this is it. Okay. Basically, we're talking about a person who wakes up every morning and their stomach is in knots, the butterflies are going, and they live with this all the time. They're in a constant state of fear or anxiety. Now, this, to be diagnosed as having generalized anxiety disorder, has to be present for at least 6 months, and a situation where, again, there's no end in sight. So this is a very difficult thing. If you think about times when you've been under a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, you usually think of, oh yeah, back, when I was getting ready for prom or something, when I had to study for the SATs. Those are very high stressful things for a lot of students. Well, yes, but you had an end in sight. As soon as prom or the SAT, as soon as those things were done and over, you could relax a little bit. These people cannot relax. Panic disorder is a second type of anxiety disorder. And this obviously involves recurring or ongoing panic attacks. Now, in a panic attack, you're talking about where your heart rate increases, you've got labored breathing, a lot of people have chest pains, they may have dizziness. They find it very difficult to concentrate, and this basically it's kind of a disabling type of anxiety, and it's usually brought on by a variety of things. Could be a stressful or an insecure family life. Could be anger. They get extremely angry at something, and it causes or brings about a panic attack. Could be some important decision that they have to make. It could be sitting in stop and go traffic. If you're in a major traffic jam, you could be driving, and in the middle of driving in this traffic jam, you just find that there's no escape, and a person could go into a panic attack. Now, to be diagnosed as having panic disorder, you have to have had panic attacks, obviously, but you also must experience them and be worried about more attacks for at least a month in time. So that's part of the problem, part of the issue with panic disorder is that not only the panic attacks are disabling, but then you've got this constant fear that you never know when another one's going to come, and that's an issue. Phobic disorders basically is where people have phobias. The fear is way out of proportion with the real danger of the situation. I mean, let's be honest, if you see a snake, most snakes are harmless, or spiders, or, any kind of insect, things like that. Most of them are not a big issue, but some people have extreme phobias. My Aunt Laverne was scared to death of rats or mice or anything that looked like a rat or a mouse. And she would scream and take off running, and a lot of times jump up on tables. There's times when she would be at work, and she worked in a factory, and if there was a mouse somebody saw a mouse, she would be up on top of a table screaming at the top of her lungs. Now, did she really need to do that? Was it that fearful? Not really. But some people react that way. So that's a phobia. The time period when people, age-wise, tend to have the most phobias is actually around 50 years old. People around 50 tend to have the biggest issues with phobias. OCD, or obsession compulsion disorder. Okay, a lot of people have this to a lesser degree. We tend to think of like somebody like Monk as being extreme, but a lot of people, myself included, tend to be a little OCD with certain things. You have to have, when you do something, you have to do it a certain way, or you have to do it, you have to think about it a certain way. Now, very important, you have to understand the difference in these two terms. An obsession refers to thinking the same thought over and over and over again. You just can't get the thought out of your mind. That's an obsession. A compulsion is performing the same action or the same behavior over and over and over again. Okay, so make sure you understand the difference. They tend to go together, but make sure you know the difference between the two. Now, the problem begins when the thought or the activity begins to hinder the person's normal functioning. Okay? You could be obsessed with cleanliness, and if you clean your kitchen twice a day, not a big deal. Okay? You don't have really an issue. But if all of a sudden you're cleaning the kitchen countertops, 18 times a day, that can create a problem because now you're not getting anything else done. You're allowing this to take over your life. If you go out to start the car and you have a set of rituals, if you're obsessed with a set of rituals that you have to do before you start and drive your car, it may take you 7, 8, 10 minutes to get your car started. That can be an issue because now you're late to school, you're late to work, you can't get anywhere on time. That's a problem. Okay? Now, PTSD, that stands for post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder. Okay? PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And what we're talking about here is when a person has a very traumatic event, and then they suffer extreme symptoms after that event for a long period of time. A lot of times we associate this, it doesn't have to be this way, but we associate it with people who are in the military. And they come back from maybe fighting overseas, and they've been in life-threatening situations. And now they get back to civilian life, and all of a sudden, they have flashbacks, or they hear a car backfire, and the next thing you know is they're hitting the ground covering their head, and they're totally embarrassed about this because a lot of people don't understand. But they have nightmares. They wake up in the middle of the night with nightmares. They have these types of things that are causing them issues. Okay, that's post-traumatic stress disorder. Now again, it doesn't have to be military. It could be, you could have been attacked or felt the fear of an attack. Something of that nature where, now you're constantly worrying about that sort of thing and it's causing, major issues with you, whether it be nightmares or flashbacks, those types of things. Now, the one thing I want to emphasize to these, to all of this in this category, if you or somebody you know has an issue with any of these, please go and get help. Okay, there is plenty of help available. It comes in a variety of techniques. There's different medications that can help you on various things here. So don't just live with these issues. Okay, go and seek assistance because these are definitely things that can be helped.